I remember the exact moment the number on my screen crossed $1 million. I was sitting on the floor of a one-bedroom apartment my mum and I shared. The Wi-Fi was on her name. The electricity had been shut off twice that year. I was 22 years old, and I had just become the first millionaire in my entire family's history. Let me show you where I actually started. My mum worked 2 jobs. We lived in the same apartment for 11 years. I wore the same 3 pairs of shoes until they fell apart. I didn't know anyone who had built a business. I didn't know anyone who invested money. I didn't even know what a profit margin was until I was 19. My world was small, but it was mine. I was 19 when I asked the question that changed everything. I was working a part-time job, minimum wage, stacking shelves. And I remember standing in the aisle thinking, I am trading my time for money, and I will never have enough time to trade. So what do people do instead? That question sent me down a rabbit hole I never climbed out of. I spent every free hour reading, not school stuff, business books, investing basics, how people actually built things. I watched every free video I could find. I took notes in cheap notebooks. I had no mentor, no connections, no money to invest, but I had time, and I was angrier than I had ever been. Not at anyone, just at the gap between where I was and where I knew I could go. The first idea wasn't glamorous. I noticed something simple. People in my neighborhood were paying way too much for basic services because they didn't know better options existed. Information was the gap, so I started a tiny local newsletter. Free for readers, paid by small local businesses. I charged $50 a placement. I had 0 subscribers on day 1. Getting the first 100 subscribers took 6 weeks. I printed flyers on the library printer. I knocked on doors. I stood outside the corner store and handed them out myself. People thought I was selling something sketchy. Some were rude. Most ignored me. But every single person who signed up, I treated like they were the most important person on the list. Because they were. By month 4, I had 400 subscribers and 8 local businesses paying me. I was making more from the newsletter than from my shelf stacking job, so I quit. My mum thought I had lost my mind. I sat her down and showed her the numbers. She looked at the spreadsheet for a long time. Then she said, "Okay, keep going." That was all I needed. In month 8, I realized the newsletter was a product. But what the local businesses actually needed was a platform, a place where they could manage their marketing, their offers, their audience themselves. I had been doing it manually. What if they could do it without me? That question terrified me and excited me in equal measure. I started rebuilding from scratch. The first version of the platform broke completely on launch day. Every business I had signed up, 8 of them, emailed me within an hour. I spent 36 hours straight fixing it. I didn't sleep. I barely ate. My mum checked on me twice. The second time, she left a plate outside my door without saying anything. That plate meant more to me than I could explain. 36 hours later, it worked. All 8 businesses re-onboarded in one day. 3 of them sent me messages saying it was better than anything they'd used before. I read those messages, sitting on the floor of my room, back against the bed, still in the same clothes. I was 20 years old, and I had built something real. I remember thinking, this is just the beginning. By month 12, I had 42 businesses on the platform, 12,000 newsletter subscribers, and monthly recurring revenue of $11,000. I was 20 years old. I had never taken a business class. I had never had a mentor. I had a kitchen table, a cheap laptop, and a question I refused to stop asking. The money wasn't the point. The proof was. In month 14, I hired my first employee. Her name was Dana. She was older than me, more experienced, and honestly better at half the things I was doing. That was uncomfortable for about a week. And then I realized that discomfort was exactly the point. You don't build something big by staying the smartest person in the room. You build it by finding people who make the room smarter. Month 16, I signed a lease on a small apartment, my own apartment. 1 bedroom, modest neighborhood, nothing fancy, but it was mine. I helped my mum with her rent from then on. I didn't tell her the amount. I just set it up as a transfer. She found out 3 weeks later. She called me and didn't say anything for a full minute. And then she said, "I knew. I always knew." Something nobody tells you about making money young. The gap. Not between you and rich people, between you and where you came from. My old friends were still in the same spot. I wasn't better than them. I just wanted different things. Conversations got shorter. Hangouts got awkward. I didn't know how to be in two worlds at once, and for a while, I felt very alone. Year 2. I brought on 2 more hires. We moved to a small shared office space. The platform had 120 businesses. Monthly revenue crossed $30,000. I reinvested most of it. I paid myself modestly. I kept showing up. The thing about building something, nobody sees the middle part. They see where you started and where you ended up. The middle part is just you, every day, choosing not to stop. 18 months in, someone reached out to me, not the other way around. A small investment firm. They'd been watching the platform grow. They wanted to meet. I sat in that meeting trying not to show how surreal it felt. 6 months earlier, I was stacking shelves. Now someone was asking me if I wanted to grow faster. I said yes, but on my terms. We closed the seed round, $400,000. I called my mum from the parking lot. She asked me what that meant. I said it means people believe in what I'm building. She said, I always believed in it. I sat in my car for 20 minutes after that call, and then I went back to work. Because the money wasn't the destination, it was the fuel. By month 26, the platform had 400 businesses. Annual recurring revenue was pushing $800,000. I knew the number was coming. I didn't tell anyone. Not Dana, not my team, not my mum. I just kept working. Some nights I'd open the dashboard and stare at the number and close the laptop. Not yet, but close. It happened on a Tuesday evening. I was sitting on the floor of my apartment, the same floor I'd sat on 100 times before. I opened the dashboard, and the number read $1,042. I sat very still for a long time. I didn't jump. I didn't call anyone. I just sat there and thought about the shelf stacking job, and the flyers, and the broken launch, and my mum's plate outside the door. I called my mum. It was 11 at night. She picked up immediately. She always picked up. I told her the number. She didn't understand what it meant at first, so I said it differently. Mum, you don't have to work 2 jobs anymore. There was a silence, and then I heard something I had never heard before. My mum crying. Not sad crying, the other kind. I woke up the next morning and checked the dashboard first thing, just to make sure it was real. It was. I made coffee. I sat at my kitchen table. Not the old one, my new one. But the same ritual, same notebook, same questions. Because the number changes, the work doesn't. And the version of me sitting at that table was still the kid from the 1-bedroom apartment. He just had more proof now. People always want to know, what was the first thing you bought? It wasn't a car. It wasn't clothes. The first thing I did with real money was pay off the 2 months of back rent my mum still owed from 3 years ago. She didn't know I knew about it. I'd seen the notices in the kitchen drawer when I was 17. I paid it, anonymously. She never mentioned it. I never told her. Some things are just between you and who you used to be. Here is what money changed. I stopped checking my account before buying groceries. I stopped doing the math on the bus fare. I stopped the low-level background anxiety that I didn't even know was there until it was gone. That anxiety was the sound of not having enough. When it went quiet, I realized how loud it had been. That silence was the real thing money bought me. Not stuff. Silence. Here is what money didn't change. Who called me when something went wrong? What made me laugh? The way I still sit on the floor sometimes instead of the sofa. The notebook, the questions, my mum's voice. The part of me that still feels like the kid who stood outside the corner store, handing out flyers to strangers. That part is not gone. I work very hard to make sure it stays. Month 32. Annual recurring revenue crossed $2 million. We had a team of 9. 300 platform users had grown to over 800. I moved the company into a real office, a proper one, with a sign on the door. I stood outside that door on the first day and thought about the library printer, the flyers, the zero. You have to remember the zero. It's the most important number you'll ever have. My mum visited the office on a Thursday. She came straight from her morning shift. She still worked one job by then, by choice. She walked in and looked around at the desks, the team, the sign on the wall. She didn't say much. She walked to my desk and put her hand on the chair. Then she looked at me and said, "This started in our kitchen." I said, "It started with you." If I could go back to that store aisle, to the 19-year-old holding a product, staring at nothing, asking why, I would tell him, "The question is right. Keep asking it. Don't wait for permission. Don't wait until you have enough. Don't wait for someone who looks like you to go first. You are the person who goes first. In your family, in your neighborhood, in your own story. Go first." You're watching this because something in you is asking a question. Maybe you don't know exactly what the question is yet. That's fine. I didn't either, standing in that aisle. But the question is forming. I can tell you this. The first millionaire in your family could be you. Not because it's easy, because you decided it was possible. Open a notebook, write the question, and then go first. And if stories like this keep you watching, you already know where to be for the next one.